She turned toward the cracked tile near the platform. The fissure had widened. A sliver of light leaked out from within the same golden hue that had glowed beneath the door, the vault. Mara felt it like gravity. The pull wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, as if something deep within her recognized the heartbeat below. The station master's voice echoed in her memory. "The light is the trap. Mama," Lily whispered. "It's calling you." Mara turned sharply. "No, we're leaving now." She grabbed Lily's coat, her bag, anything she could carry. But when she turned toward the exit, the doors were sealed. The rusted locks she'd never used were now fused tight. Metal melted into the frame. The fog pressed against the windows like a tide trying to drown the station. "Mama, look." Lily was pointing toward the mural, the one that had changed before. The painted train was now glowing faintly, its smoke swirling with motion. The faces of the passengers were clearer, distinct. They weren't smiling anymore. One of them was Ethan. Mara's breath shattered in her throat. She stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. No, that's not real. The mural shifted not like paint, but like a reflection. The steam moved, parting just enough for her to see something behind it, a dark tunnel, faint lights moving within it. Then a voice, Ethan's again, soft and pleading. "Please, Mara, don't make me wait any longer." The mural's train light flared once, then went dark. Lily clung to her mother's coat, whispering, "He's inside the train." Mara looked down at her shaking hands. The key vibrated again, matching the pulse beneath the floor. The vault was no longer just a place, it was connected to all of it. The train, the light, the voices. And somehow it wanted her to come down. The ground trembled once more. The crack in the marble split further, and with a sound like a sigh, the first section of the floor gave way, revealing an iron staircase spiraling into blackness. Warm air drifted up, heavy, metallic, smelling faintly of dust and oil. Lily gasped, "Mama." Mara gripped her shoulders. "Listen to me. Stay here. If anything happens, you run and don't look back." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "You can't go down there." "I have to." Mara lifted the lantern, its light barely cutting through the thick air rising from below. The hum was louder now, deep and steady, almost like the rhythm of an engine idling beneath the earth. She stood at the edge of the staircase, staring into the dark. "I'm not afraid of you," she whispered. The air answered with a faint metallic click, the sound of an unseen door unlocking. She tightened her grip on the key. One last breath. Then she began to descend. Each step echoed like a heartbeat, her shadow stretching across the walls as the light followed her downward. The sound of the station faded above her, replaced by the hum of machinery and the whisper of voices too distant to understand. Halfway down she stopped and looked back. The fog above had already swallowed the opening. There was no way out now. Below, the vault waited alive, ancient, and whispering her name through the dark. And somewhere deep within it, she heard Ethan's voice again, "Welcome home." The air thickened with every step Mara took. The stairwell spiraled endlessly, carved from old iron and stone, slick with condensation and time. Her lantern flickered in the damp, throwing trembling arcs of light across the walls. The deeper she went, the louder the hum became, not machinery now, but something living, something breathing. She could still hear her own heartbeat, but it no longer sounded like hers. It matched the rhythm beneath her feet. When her boots touched the final step, the stairwell opened into a cavernous chamber. The air down here was warmer, almost humid, heavy with the scent of metal, oil, and something faintly sweet like old flowers left too long in water. She lifted the lantern. Its weak light revealed what looked like the remains of a storage facility, massive concrete walls lined with rusted pipes, rail switches, and corroded signs, halves, wallowed by age. On one wall, stenciled letters spelled out, "North Hollow Freight Vault 9. Mara's breath caught. She stepped forward slowly, her light glancing over broken crates and collapsed shelving. Old freight manifests littered the floor, the paper blackened by moisture. She crouched and picked one up, brushing away the grime. The date at the top read June 17, 1946, the same date stamped on the cancelled tickets. Her lantern beam moved across the chamber and stopped. At the far end of the room stood a door, not just any door, a vault door, 12 feet high, circular, made of steel so thick it seemed impossible to have ever moved. Its edges were scorched black, as though from an explosion long ago. In the center of the metal was a single keyhole. Mara stepped closer. The hum vibrated through the soles of her boots, the sound deepening the nearer she got. The door pulsed faintly, in rhythm with the key in her hand. Her voice trembled. "You've been waiting, haven't you?" A faint echo answered her, but it wasn't her own. Too long. She spun around. The chamber was empty. Who's there? Her lantern flickered, shadows leaping along the walls. From one of the side tunnels, a figure stepped into the light. It was Jonathan R. Voss, the station master. He looked almost human now, his uniform still dusted with ash, his face drawn but no longer blurred. The hollow glow in his eyes had dimmed, replaced with something worse, sorrow. Mara raised the lantern toward him. "You said not to open it." "I did," he replied. His voice was low, filled with weight. "But now you've brought the key back to it. It knows you're here. There's no locking it again." "What's inside?" Voss's gaze shifted to the door. It was supposed to be a transport vault, a temporary holding unit for the gold sent from Europe after the war. They told us it was payment, reparations, hope. His voice broke on the last word, but it wasn't gold. Mara's skin prickled. Then what was it? "The last train that came through here didn't carry treasure," he said. "It carried what was left of them. Men, women, children, hidden, disposed of. When we found out, we tried to stop it. The government called it an accident, a derailment. But there was no crash. We locked the carriages down here and sealed them." Mara stared at him, the horror slowly seeping into her bones. "You buried them alive?" Voss's jaw tightened. "We didn't know they were still alive." Her stomach turned. "And now?" He interrupted. "The vault remembers. Every echo, every soul trapped beneath that door, they want to be seen. They want the world to know what was done to them, and they've chosen you." She shook her head violently. "No, I didn't ask for this. I just needed a home." He stepped closer. "You came because you were lost. You came because you were desperate. That's how it works. It doesn't choose the pure. It chooses the broken." Mara felt tears sting her eyes. "Why me?" "Because you can't walk away," he said softly, "and because you carry their same grief." He looked toward the door again, the hum swelling around them. "It's waking. You have to decide what to do before it fully opens. What happens if it opens? The truth comes out," he said. "And the world above will finally remember." She stared at the vault door. The air in front of it shimmered faintly, golden light bleeding from the seams. The sound that came from within wasn't screaming or crying anymore. It was a single long breath, like 1,000 voices exhaling at once. Her hand trembled. The key pulsed again, hotter now, the brass almost burning against her palm. Voss looked at her. "If you open it, you'll never leave this place. But if you destroy the key, the truth dies here with us again." Mara closed her eyes. Above her, Lily was waiting, the station, the fog, the dead train still lingering between worlds. Her heart ached with the weight of it, the moral crossroads she had never asked for. When she opened her eyes, Voss was gone. Only the echo of his words remained. One choice frees them, the other saves you. The vault throbbed with light now, the golden glow filling the chamber, warm and cold all at once. Mara stepped forward until her reflection gleamed faintly in the steel. The hum was so loud she could feel it in her teeth. She lifted the key. It fit the lock perfectly. and as she held it there, her hand trembling, she heard one final whisper, not from the dead, not from Voss, but from Ethan's voice deep within the door. "Turn it, Mara, turn it and come home." The key began to move on its own. The key twisted in her palm before she even made the choice to move it. The metal burned, branding her skin with its heat, yet she couldn't let go. The lantern's light flared and died, plunging the vault into darkness, except for the thin halo seeping through the seam of the massive steel door. The hum became a roar. Mara staggered back, trying to release the key, but it held her hand fast, drawing her forward as though the lock itself were breathing her closer. The steel vibrated beneath her fingers, then a sharp, shuddering sound split the air, the hiss of pressurized bolts snapping free after decades of rust. The vault door lurched. It turned once, a fraction of an inch, and from the crack spilled a light that wasn't light, golden and white, pulsing and alive. It spilled over her face and hands, dazzling and blinding all at once. Beneath that radiance came voices, hundreds, whispering, crying, laughing. The sound was not sorrow or rage. It was release. Mara fell to her knees, the key slipping free at last, clattering onto the concrete. The glow grew brighter, spreading across the walls, turning every shadow into moving shape. In the storm of brilliance, she saw faces blurred and translucent drifting upward, as though carried by invisible steam. Men, women, children, their eyes closed, their mouths moving in silent words of thanks or prayer. She pressed a hand to her heart. "You were never gone," she whispered. "You were just waiting." The chamber trembled as the last of the bolts gave way. The door swung outward a few inches, heavy enough that the vibration shook dust from the ceiling. From within came the sound of old iron shifting, the creak of wheels that hadn't moved since the war. Her eyes adjusted to the glow. She could see inside now. Rows of train cars stood in the hollow space beyond, skeletal, eaten by rust, their windows shattered. But the light came not from them. It came from what was draped across them, thousands of small, glimmering pieces of gold. Coins, jewelry, trinkets melted together, forming a single undulating mass that seemed to breathe. Mara took a step closer. The heat from it rolled toward her, humid and metallic. The air shimmered. A voice rose out of the glow, Ethan's again, but softer, more human this time. "Do you see now? They were never the treasure, they were the cost." Mara turned slowly. The ghost of the station master stood at the base of the stairs, his cap in his hands. Behind him the mist poured downward, folding into the room like a tide. "You opened it," he said. "I had to," she whispered. "They deserve to be remembered." Voss's eyes flickered toward the light. "Then they are free, but freedom has a price." The golden mass began to shift. The coins and chains rose in slow spirals, forming figures that shimmered between gold and ash. Their faces turned toward her, mouths opening in a chorus of soundless gratitude. She took a single step back, tears running down her cheeks. "Go," Voss said quietly, "before it takes you too." Mara turned toward the stairs. The air was thicker now, pushing against her as though the vault itself were drawing breath. She clutched the railing, pulling herself upward. Behind her the light pulsed brighter, flooding every inch of the chamber. "Run," Voss's voice echoed. She climbed, lungs burning, every step fighting the weight of the heat and the pull of the hum. Halfway up, she looked back. Voss stood in the doorway, the light consuming him. He met her eyes one last time, nodded once, and turned toward the open vault. His voice carried faintly through the roar. "Tell them the truth." The light exploded upward, a column of gold and white shooting through the stairwell, chasing her to the surface. Mara burst through the opening into the main hall, gasping. The station itself was trembling, windows rattling, rails vibrating, dust falling in sheets from the ceiling. Lily was there, crouched behind the benches, screaming for her mother. Mara scooped her up, pulling her close. "We have to go." The fog outside had turned into a blinding storm of light, sweeping through the yard, wrapping around the rusted trains like wind and flame. It didn't burn, it lifted, it carried. For the first time, the station sounded alive again. Through the broken doors, Mara saw shadows rising into the air, dozens of faint human shapes carried upward through the fog, dissolving into the sky. The hum grew softer, fading into a melody, a strange, distant hymn. Lily buried her face against her shoulder. "Are they angels, Mama?" Mara swallowed hard. "No, sweetheart," she whispered, "they're free." The ground gave one last shudder. Then the light receded, the tremor died, and silence fell. The station stood still again, broken, quiet, and empty. Mara set Lily down and turned toward the opening to the stairwell. It was gone. The floor had sealed itself with a smooth layer of blackened stone. The vault had closed forever. She reached into her coat pocket and felt the key. It was no longer hot, cool, ordinary brass once more, the number 91 barely visible under layers of soot. She pressed it into Lily's hand. "Keep it," she said softly. "It's not just a key, it's a promise." The first real dawn light broke through the clouds then, a pale gold that felt human, natural. The fog lifted slowly from the tracks. Mara looked out across the yard. For the first time since she arrived, she heard the world outside the station, the wind in the trees. A single bird calling from somewhere far beyond the rail line. She turned to her daughter. "It's over," she said, but deep beneath the new sunlight, faint and distant, the sound of a train whistle echoed once long and low, fading into the horizon like a farewell. Mara held Lily close and whispered, "Some stories never end. They just move on." And as the morning light spilled through the broken arches of the station, mother and daughter stood together, surrounded by the ghosts of a past finally at peace. The day after the vault opened, the world above was quiet again. The air carried no fog, only the faint scent of rain and metal. Sunlight fell through the broken ceiling of the station, turning every shard of glass into gold. It was the first true morning Mara had seen since arriving. She stood in the main hall barefoot, the floor beneath her cold but still. The station no longer hummed, no more whispers, no ghostly trains moaning through the fog. Only silence, heavy, complete, almost sacred. Lily was drawing by the window again, using charcoal she'd found from the fire pit. Her small hand moved in slow circles, calm and focused. Mara watched her for a long while, amazed at how children could find peace in the ashes of chaos. "What are you drawing?" she asked softly. Lily smiled without looking up. "The train," she said, "but this one's empty. It's just light now." Mara's heart ached, a strange mix of sadness and pride. She knelt beside her daughter and traced the edge of the paper. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." "It left," Lily said, her voice thoughtful. "They all left, but I think they said goodbye." Mara looked toward the tracks, now half covered in wild grass that hadn't been there yesterday. Time felt strange here, like something had broken and healed in the same breath. For the first time since she'd arrived, she wasn't afraid. The fear had been replaced by something quieter, the weight of knowing, the ache of understanding too much. She walked to the platform, the morning light soft against her face. The wind whispered through the arches, carrying the smell of earth and rust. The rails gleamed faintly, like veins of memory running deep into the land. Where the fissure had once been, the marble was smooth now, sealed as if the earth had healed itself. No sign of the stairway, no trace of the vault, just stillness. Mara crouched, pressing her palm against the stone. It was cool, solid, final. "Thank you," she whispered. The wind answered with a faint sigh. the kind that sounds almost like a voice too distant to catch. Behind her, Lily's laughter rang through the hall, bright, real, alive. Mara turned to see her spinning beneath a shaft of sunlight, her arms outstretched, her laughter echoing off the walls. For a heartbeat, the station didn't look abandoned anymore. It looked reborn, and yet, in the edges of the light, Mara thought she saw movement, a flicker, a shadow crossing behind one of the broken arches. She blinked and it was gone, but a feeling lingered. She picked up the brass key from where it hung on the chain around her neck. Its surface had dulled to a warm bronze, harmless and ordinary. Still, when she closed her eyes, she swore she could feel a heartbeat inside it, faint, steady, like a memory that refused to die. Lily ran up and grabbed her hand. "Can we stay here forever?" Mara smiled faintly. "Not forever, my love. Just long enough to remember." They walked through the station together, sunlight tracing the outlines of old benches, walls, and the mural that had once glowed with gold. The faces were faded again, returned to paint and silence, but something had changed them. The figures on the mural were now looking forward, not upward. Their hands weren't reaching for the train anymore, but for each other. Mara stopped to study it. "They were never trying to escape," she murmured. "They were trying to hold on." She felt Lily slip her small hand into hers. "Like us," Mara nodded, her throat tight. "Exactly like us." Outside, the wind carried a faint sound, a whistle, far away, faint and fading. Not haunting this time, but peaceful, like a lullaby drifting across the hills. The world felt lighter. The past had been set free, but its echo remained not as a curse, but as a reminder. Mara turned to her daughter. "Come on, let's go home." Lily tilted her head. "Where is home now?" Mara smiled softly, her gaze sweeping across the quiet ruins, the cracks filled with light. "Anywhere we choose to start again." As they stepped through the archway into the morning sun, the station behind them seemed to breathe one last time, a soft exhale of dust and warmth, a sigh of release. And somewhere deep below, far beneath the earth and stone, a single light still flickered, not as a warning this time, but as a memory. The vault had closed, but the story it carried would never be buried again. The road out of the valley was lined with wildflowers that hadn't grown there before. The colors were quiet, soft yellows, pale blues, but to Mara they looked like a promise. She and Lily walked slowly, their shadows stretching long in the afternoon sun. The borrowed truck sat at the edge of the road where she had left it days ago, untouched, waiting. When she started the engine, it coughed and groaned, then settled into a steady hum. She rested her hand on the wheel for a moment, looking back at the station one last time. From a distance, it didn't look haunted anymore. The fog had lifted entirely, revealing its true shape. Graceful arches, cracked stone, and ivy winding through every scar. The clock tower still leaned, but sunlight caught on the glass face, making it glint like a beacon. Lily leaned against the window, watching the building disappear behind the trees. "Do you think they're gone for good?" Mara's voice was soft. "I think they've gone where they were meant to." "And the man with the hat?" Mara smiled faintly. "He stayed behind to make sure the door closed." Lily nodded solemnly, as though she understood. Children often understood more than words could explain. They drove for hours without speaking, the landscape unfolding in waves of color. Fields gave way to forests, forests to small towns, and then the world of the living began again. Gas stations, mailboxes, the smell of coffee drifting from unseen windows. Mara felt the pull of the ordinary world like a strange kind of gravity. For the first time in weeks, she saw people real, laughing, arguing, existing without the weight of ghosts. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something of the vault still lived within her. When the road widened, she pulled over near a hill that overlooked the town below. The air was warm, heavy with summer, cicadas humming in the distance. She turned off the engine and sat in silence. Lily climbed into her lap, resting her head against her mother's chest. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then Lily whispered, "Are we safe now?" Mara wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Yes, sweetheart, we're safe." The answer came easily, but the truth behind it lingered, a quiet uncertainty. A heartbeat she could still feel under her ribs, steady and low. The vault's rhythm hadn't stopped completely. It had simply changed. From her pocket she drew out the key. It looked ordinary now, dull brass, worn edges, nothing more than metal and memory. But when she held it to the light, a faint reflection shimmered across its surface, a railway line stretching into the horizon. She turned it over once, then again, then closed her hand around it. Lily looked up. "Are you going to keep it for a while?" Mara said. "Not because I need it, but because someone has to remember what happened." Lily smiled. "Then it'll remember you too." Mara laughed softly, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Maybe it will." They sat together until the sun began to sink. The sky turned gold, then deep red, the colors bleeding into each other like old photographs fading in reverse. The first stars emerged above the valley, faint and shy. When Mara looked back toward the direction of the station, the horizon shimmered not with light, but with movement. For a second, she thought it was just the heat playing tricks. But then she heard it, the faint, distant sound of a train whistle, low and familiar, echoing across the hills. It wasn't mournful this time. It was gentle, like a farewell. Mara closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just the station that had been haunted. It was her by grief, by guilt, by the belief that her life had ended with the man she lost. The vault had been a mirror, reflecting everything buried inside her. And when it opened, when the light spilled out, it hadn't just freed the dead. It had freed her too. She turned the key one last time between her fingers, then leaned out the window and threw it into the tall grass beside the road. It vanished instantly, swallowed by the earth. Lily gasped. "You let it go." Mara smiled, eyes still on the fading horizon. "That's how you make peace with ghosts," she said softly. "You stop trying to keep them." The sound of the whistle faded, carried away by the wind. The valley grew quiet again. Mara started the engine, steering the truck down the hill toward the lights of the town, toward life, toward whatever came next. As they drove, the last trace of sunlight slipped behind the trees, and for the first time, the darkness didn't feel like an ending. It felt like rest, somewhere far behind them, deep under the earth where Vault 9 had once breathed. A single gear clicked into stillness, a sound so faint it could have been mistaken for a sigh. The story of the station had finally stopped moving. But for Mara and Lily, the journey was only beginning. The first few weeks after leaving the valley passed in a strange, quiet blur. The world felt softer, as if every sound came through a filter of distant rain. Mara rented a small apartment above a bakery in a nearby town, a place that smelled like yeast and morning, where no one knew her name, where the walls didn't whisper at night. She woke early each day, sometimes before the dawn, listening to the clatter of trays downstairs and the low hum of ovens firing to life. It was the hum that comforted her, most steady, earthly, familiar. Not like the heartbeat of the vault, not like the ghosts of machinery from beneath the earth. This sound was alive, human. Lily adapted quickly. Children always did. She made friends with the baker's daughter, spent afternoons drawing trains and birds in chalk on the sidewalk. When she laughed, it sounded like sunlight. Mara never tired of hearing it. And yet, some nights, she still woke to silence that felt too deep. The kind that pressed against her ears and made her reach instinctively for the empty space beside her bed, expecting to find Ethan's hand. It was always the same, that fleeting moment before memory settled back in. The nightmares came less often now, but when they did, they weren't about the vault, they were about light. A golden glow spilling down endless corridors, a door that always stood half open, and a voice calling her name not in warning, but in longing. She never told Lily about the dreams. One morning, about a month after their arrival, Mara sat by the kitchen window with a cup of coffee. The radio hummed softly in the background, an old song about home and distance. The newspaper on the counter caught her eye, a headline about a construction crew uncovering a sealed freight tunnel outside another forgotten depot miles away. Authorities claimed it was likely historical. Her hands tightened around the cup. The photo beneath the headline showed a familiar shape, a rusted railcar door, half open, light spilling from the darkness within. Mara folded the paper carefully, sliding it into the drawer. She didn't need to read more. That afternoon, she took Lily to the park. The sky was clear, the grass damp from a morning shower. Lily ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, her laughter echoing against the trees. Mara sat on the bench, watching, trying to anchor herself in the ordinary. But the peace that had settled over her these past weeks began to stir. She could feel it, the same subtle pull she'd felt back in the station. A thread connecting her to something unseen. It wasn't fear this time, it was awareness. "Mama," Lily called from the field. "Look what I found." Mara stood and walked toward her. Lily knelt in the grass, holding something small in her palm. It glinted in the sunlight, a coin, gold, faintly tarnished. Mara's breath caught. The edges were worn smooth, but a faint engraving was still visible, Central Line Freight. Her throat tightened. She took the coin, turning it over in her hand. It was cold, impossibly cold. Lily smiled. It was buried right there. Maybe it's lucky. Mara forced a smile. Maybe it is. She slipped it into her coat pocket and hugged her daughter close, her heart pounding in her chest. That night, she placed the coin on the table and stared at it under the kitchen light. It didn't hum, didn't glow, it just sat there, quiet and ordinary, but something about it felt awake. She whispered to herself, "You're not done, are you?" Outside, a wind rose, soft but steady, carrying with it the faint, far-off sound of metal on metal, a train rolling through the night, though no lines ran anywhere near the town. Mara closed her eyes. The memory of light filled her mind again, warm and endless, not threatening this time, but patient. Some truths, she realized, never end. They wait. They find new doors, new keepers. She looked toward Lily's room, where her daughter slept peacefully, the faint sound of her breathing mingling with the hum of the world outside. Mara smiled, a tired, knowing smile. "Not this time," she whispered to the coin. "Whatever you're looking for, it's not me anymore." But deep down, she wasn't sure she believed it, because as she turned off the light, the coin shifted just slightly, catching the last sliver of the moon. And from somewhere beyond the horizon, faint but undeniable, came the long, mournful whistle of a train that shouldn't exist. The vault's song wasn't over. It had just changed tracks. The whistle faded into silence, but sleep never came easily that night. Mara lay awake long after the house fell quiet, the steady rhythm of the bakery's ovens below replaced by the slow ticking of the clock on her wall. Each tick felt too loud, too measured, like the echo of rails under a moving train. She got up before dawn and stood by the window. The street was still, the first faint blush of morning creeping between the rooftops. In the distance, the hills shimmered with fog, thin, harmless fog, the kind that belonged to the living world. And yet, as she stared at it, she swore she could hear something beneath the quiet, a faint vibration. She pressed her palm to the glass. Nothing, no hum, no pulse, just the chill of early morning. By the time the bakery opened, the air smelled of sugar and warm bread. Lily came down in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Mara smiled at her and poured milk into a mug, pretending nothing had changed. They ate in silence, but Mara's mind wandered back to the coin now sitting in the drawer beside the folded newspaper. It felt different now, heavier somehow. When she'd picked it up last night to move it, it had almost hummed. Not sound exactly, but sensation. The same low vibration she used to feel through the soles of her boots in the station. "Can we go see the trains today?" Lily asked suddenly. "The real ones." Mara hesitated. There was a small museum just outside town. Restored freight yard with one of the old locomotives on display. She'd passed it on their first day here and promised they would visit when things felt normal again. But the idea of standing near steel and tracks, of hearing that sound again, made her chest tighten. "Maybe this weekend," she said softly. Lily looked disappointed for only a moment, then brightened again. "Can I draw one instead?" "Of course." While Lily sketched at the table, Mara opened the drawer and took the coin out once more. It was warm now, warmer than her skin. She turned it over in her palm, tracing the faint engraving, Central Line Freight. The letters seemed deeper than before, the grooves catching the light in ways that didn't make sense. She could almost see movement in the reflection. Shadows, smoke, the blur of something rushing past. Mara closed her fist around it and whispered, "I freed you. You don't need me any more." A sudden sound made her flinch. The sharp chime of the bell above the bakery door downstairs. A man's voice followed, polite, low, unfamiliar. "Good morning. I'm looking for Mrs. Ellison." Mara froze. No one in town knew that name. She moved to the top of the stairs, listening. The baker's wife, cheerful and unbothered, said, "Upstairs, love, third door." Mara's pulse quickened. She slipped the coin into her pocket. Moments later, a soft knock sounded on her apartment door. She opened it halfway. The man standing there wore a long coat the color of dust, a hat pulled low against the light. His features were sharp but kind, his eyes unreadable. "Mrs. Ellison?" he asked. Mara nodded slowly. "Yes, can I help you?" He smiled faintly. "My name is Derek Voss." The name hit her like ice water. "Voss," she whispered. He nodded. "Jonathan was my grandfather." Her throat went dry. The man reached into his coat and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed and sealed with wax. The stamp bore a familiar symbol, a circle with the letter B inside it. "Directive 41, B. My grandfather left this with our family," Derek said. "We were told to pass it on if anything at the North Hollow site ever reopened." Mara stared at him. "How did you find me?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to her pocket, where the coin rested. "Let's just say, the vault leaves traces." She wanted to slam the door, to pretend this was just another piece of the nightmare she'd already survived. But something in his voice, soft, careful, kept her still. He handed her the envelope. "You should read it, then decide what to do." Before she could reply, he tipped his hat and turned down the hall, footsteps fading with uncanny quiet. Mara stood frozen, staring at the letter in her hand. The seal was unbroken, the paper brittle and thin. She walked back to the table, set it down beside Lily's drawing, and slid a knife under the wax. The smell that escaped wasn't dust, it was smoke. Inside were 2 sheets of parchment. The first was a map. The second was a note written in Jonathan R. Voss's hand. "If this finds its way to you, it means the vault did not die. I did what I could, but the light cannot be buried forever. Each vault was a carriage, each carriage a secret. There were 9, you opened the 9th, there are 8 more." Mara felt the world tilt. Lily looked up from her drawing. "Mama," Mara forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's nothing, sweetheart, just old paper." But as she folded the note back into its envelope, she could feel the hum again, faint but certain, this time not from the coin, not from the ground, but from the air itself. She looked out the window toward the horizon. The sky was gray again, though no storm was coming. And somewhere far off, like a heartbeat returning after too much silence, a single train whistle sounded. It wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of another line, and this time the tracks led everywhere. The next morning broke beneath a veil of grey. The sky felt low and heavy, pressing down on the town like an unspoken secret. Mara sat at the kitchen table, the unopened map from Jonathan R. Voss spread before her. The paper was so thin it nearly disintegrated under her touch, but the ink remained sharp lines, routes, and symbols converging like veins across a body she hadn't known existed. At the center, 9 circles had been drawn in a perfect arc. Each was labeled with a number and a name: Vault 1 Blackridge Depot, Vault 2 Willow Point Crossing, Vault 3 Ridgefall Junction. Down the list they went, every one marked with a red slash except the last. Vault 9 North Hollow. That one had been circled twice, and beside it, a single word scrawled in fading ink: Awakened. Mara traced the other 8 vaults with her finger. Each lay near an old transport hub stations that had been decommissioned decades ago. Some she recognized from history books, others she had never heard of. It was a map of forgotten ghosts. She closed her eyes, leaning back in the chair. The smell of coffee filled the small kitchen, grounding her for a moment. But beneath it, she could almost taste the air from the underground chamber, again damp, metallic, alive. Lily padded in quietly, dragging her blanket behind her. Her eyes were still heavy with sleep. "You're looking at the map again." Mara smiled faintly. "You could hear that."